I grew up with Minecraft, but I played the game just like everyone else. I had never heard of things like anarchy servers or 2b2t until I stumbled across the infamous server on YouTube.
What would you imagine for a Minecraft server that has no stated rules?
The oldest anarchy server in Minecraft.
So you've got this place where people can say and do whatever they want. With that power and freedom, what do people do? How do players act when there's no restraint on their behavior?
People are their most authentic selves on this server.
But there's a dark side to it.
This power will go to people's heads.
People take things far, too far.
People would ruin your life.
People putting each other in actually serious danger, like swatting and doxxing.
2b2t is the only Minecraft server that's been under investigation by multiple government agencies in the United States.
You've played 2b2t for 13 years. What are some of the craziest things you've seen?
Oh boy. So,
I spent hundreds of hours researching Minecraft's darkest experiment, interviewing players, going through archives, and these are the most disturbing, true stories, starting with 2b2t's first federal investigation. The year is 2012, and 2b2t is in turmoil. Launched about a year and a half earlier in December 2010, the owner, Housemaster, advertised the Anarchy server on forums like 4chan, which attracted a toxic, politically incorrect player base. From the get-go, 2b2t was filled with drama and wars, with players and groups attacking one another, profanely flaming each other in chat, and destroying each other's bases. To give some context as to how the federal investigation even started, we have to understand what players were willing to do to one another. For example, a player named Chris Lighton obsessively griefed and destroyed other people's builds and constantly harassed new players at spawn. Chris went to the small area in the center of the map where new players would spawn in and filled it with lava. This made it nearly impossible for anyone new to escape, and may have actually started the 2b2t tradition of spawn killing new players. During all this, Chris declared himself the king of 2b2t in a message that contained many profane words. Tired of this, one player realized that Chris Lighton was actually Chris's legal name, so Chris doxed himself. The player got a hold of Chris's mobile phone number and called him. This scared Chris so much that he quit the server forever. To mock Chris, the notorious griefer PopBob created an account called Chris_Lighton. The case of Chris Lighton may have been the first where the server's drama bled into the real world, but it certainly wouldn't be the last. In fact, that's how the United States Secret Service got involved with 2b2t. This happened with a player I'll call Piper the Parakeet. Like Chris, Piper was known as a nuisance in the community. He was actually one of PopBob's associates who was involved in the server's first backdoor. PopBob had given a plugin to the server owner Housemaster that was laced with malicious code. The plugin gave him and his friends, including Piper, admin access on 2b2t. PopBob, Piper, Police Mike 55, and others spawned in items like diamond blocks. Not only did Piper take the liberty to build whatever he wanted at Plugin Town, he used that same liberty to say whatever he wanted in the server's chat. The chat is constantly filled with offensive language, but Piper took things a step too far. He jokingly threatened to attack then President of the United States, Barack Obama. While you won't get punished on 2b2t for saying such things, you may get punished in real life. One of Piper's enemies on the server reported him to the Secret Service, which is the government agency in charge of protecting the president's life. Since the threats happened on 2b2t, the Secret Service investigated the server and Piper. After that happened, Piper was never seen again. There's so many cases where these players have taken things way too far. It's a serious thing to cross the line from in-game toxicity to real life, and people have acted in ways that are absolutely insane. For instance, the OG player Spartan512 describes something that happened to a friend of his, who I'll call Jason. Jason got into the crosshairs of another 2b2t player who doxed him and found all his information. Oftentimes, people will post someone's dox in chat as an intimidation technique, but Jason's enemy didn't stop there. He kept investigating until he found where Jason worked and the name of his boss. He then emailed Jason's boss saying that Jason was actually super racist and should get fired. This is all because of Minecraft drama, and it's not even close to the worst harassment that's occurred on Minecraft's oldest anarchy server. There's one case of that, which is honestly quite tragic. When joining 2b2t, you may be struck not just by the utter destruction of the spawn region, but by the politically incorrect iconography. A lot of anarchy players take the no rules environment as a chance to build things that would otherwise get them banned from other servers. To describe this and still stay within YouTube's community guidelines, I'm going to be changing some of the words I say. So when I say Brad Pitt, I'm actually talking about a certain leader in Germany during World War II. And when I say pinwheel, I'm referring to the symbol that leader liked to use. When joining 2b2t, it's extremely common to come across large quantities of pinwheels. This isn't just the case at spawn, but also at people's bases. Some of these pinwheels were built by the server owner Housemaster himself, but we'll get to the full details of that later in this video. This tragic story begins with one player who joined 2b2t all the way back in 2011. His name was Oremonger. Oremonger was not a fan of the pinwheels or the server's political incorrectness, and he took a stand against it. This only made the rest of the player base more inclined to be toxic towards Oremonger because they knew they could get a reaction out of him. But despite this, that was almost all contained to the server's chat. That was until Javazon joined. Javazon joined 2b2t in 2014, and he boasted that he'd hunt and destroy the server's most well-respected monuments. He vowed to destroy NFE, he vowed to destroy Passytown, and he vowed to destroy the Valley of Wheat. The rest of the player base was not happy about this. These builds were so esteemed that even Pop Bob, who is known to grief practically everything, visited the Valley of Wheat without laying a finger on it. Because of this, Javazon became public enemy number 1. Despite there being no connection, Javazon convinced the server that his true identity was Oremonger. When he blew up the bases, he said Oremonger was responsible. Because of this, in the eyes of the most powerful players on 2b2t, a strike against Oremonger was a strike against Javazon. To find Oremonger's base, Pop Bob had a secret weapon, the Thunder Hack. Whenever you hear thunder in Minecraft, you can draw a straight line between yourself and where it struck, and for some reason, that sound can travel as far as 160,000 blocks. The thing is, lightning only strikes in loaded chunks, so that line you drew leads directly to another player. But the only thing you need in order to know exactly where that player is on the line is another account stationed somewhere else. When you draw both lines, the intersection point is where the lightning struck. Pop Bob used this profusely, but of course, he couldn't know which players were where. But over time, since he got a hit at a specific spot whenever Oremonger was online, Pop Bob became certain that that was where Oremonger was based. On June 4th, 2014, Pop Bob and what seems like half of the members of Valkyria, that being XCC2, Pyrobite, iTristan, Jack the Ripper, Stormtrooper, Zarviar, and several other players, all descended on Oremonger's base and utterly obliterated it. Oremonger was furious, because in his mind, these guys just destroyed his base without any provocation. Javazon wasn't there. He never was. The two of them had never even been associated. But this war was just getting started. Javazon, while on an alt, secretly ventured to the ruins of Valkyria's main base when he discovered the base had been completely rebuilt by Jack the Ripper, Pyrobite, and XCC2. Jack killed Javazon, but the gig was up. Javazon gave the coordinates to the one person he knew would act on them, Oremonger. Seething, Oremonger reduced Valkyria to ash and went after the bases of other members. Then, Pop Bob began to take things beyond just the game and started spreading rumors that Oremonger, in real life, was not very kind to his wife. He even created 2 Minecraft accounts named Oremonger is a, followed by a slur. Later on, Oremonger began to base with another player named Brynillan at King's Landing. The base expanded to include over a dozen players, including Tristan, who had destroyed his original base. At this point, it seems like things simmered down a little bit because Oremonger was able to focus on building, but the peace wouldn't last long. Still, Oremonger created 2B2T's very first automatic redstone item sorter, which became infamous across the server. The sorter was incredibly complicated and greatly affected people's game performance. Oremonger had a beefy computer and didn't seem to notice it, but every time he loaded the sorter, everyone else complained that their FPS absolutely tanked. Oremonger continued his anti-bigotry stance until one day in late 2015, when Tristan was trolling him in chat, as he often did. While doing this, Tristan accidentally leaked the coordinates of King's Landing and forced Oremonger and Silver Crown King to destroy it before anyone else arrived. From there, Oremonger went to Kinorana's base, Kinograd, but he still wasn't safe. Tristan and his friend Clyde took things even further. They threatened Oremonger, claiming they doxed him and had his personal information. Not only that, but Tristan got backdoor access to the server and used it to find which base Oremonger was at. Tristan bought a whole bunch of new accounts, named with 1s and Ls to look like barcodes, totally anonymous. During 1 week in April, Tristan, Clyde, Talo112, and Jared 2013 destroyed Jack the Ripper's The Lands, Space Valkyria 2, the remains of King's Landing, and Kinograd. They were called the Tyranny. Tristan said that they stayed up griefing the bases so much so that he only got 2 hours of sleep before school the next day. Because of the barcode accounts, Oremonger had no idea who actually destroyed his base. Clyde recorded Kinograd's destruction and put it into his OneDrive folder so that the rest of the Tyranny could see the footage. But then, Kinorana somehow got access to that folder and discovered the Tyranny was behind the grief. When he leaked this to the rest of the server, Clyde re-edited the video and posted it to his channel titled Operation No Oremonger. In this video, he of course showed the base grief, but he also showed himself traveling to Oremonger's house and ringing the doorbell. Both Tristan and Clyde said they actually ding-dong-dished a random house, but nonetheless, Oremonger quit the server with no plans to ever return. Where was Housemaster during all of this? Was he asleep while his server imploded from the inside? Well, doxing is incredibly common on 2B2T, and Housemaster can't control what people do outside of the game. One player named James Russell says he was doxed through his LinkedIn, which had been set to public. The crazy thing about this is that LinkedIn users can view who's been on their profile. What this meant is the guy who doxed James accidentally doxed himself in the process. In fact, James realized that he and the doxer were actually in a very similar industry and had a lot in common. They began talking and became very close friends after this. Before 2B2T became popular, it was a very strange place. It was a place of contradictions. On the one hand was this major toxicity, doxing and harassment, but on the other, it was also a refuge for a lot of people. Exalted Spartan, a prominent member of Valkyria and the Lands, described the intimacy of the chat. There were about 100 or so people who played the server regularly, and everyone knew each other. As a result, they had sincere conversations about very deep topics. For example, Exalted Spartan said,
like I would come on and I would just candidly talk about like depression. And it's like even people that I wasn't basing with, like Jack or Kino,
people implicitly trusted each other in that way. Kinorana, who's known as 2B2T's blacksmith for discovering duplication glitches and distributing duped gear, talked about coming onto the server and sharing news of big events in his life. Another aspect of this was the server's tiny chat. The 2b2t tiny chat was basically a big video chat room where anyone on the server could join. As you can imagine, some unquestionably wild things occurred here. Here's Exalted Spartan.
I feel like I need to put this out there because I tell this story a lot to people that I meet in real life because it's just so funny.
He describes one player who was very loud and extreme.
And at one point, he took like a big bottle of sriracha. He's like, watch this. And he just took the cap off and just chugged the entire thing. Within like 30 minutes, he passed out on stream. Like he was asleep at his desk on camera. We thought he died. We were so worried. We're like, holy.
These are the kind of things that occurred on Tiny Chat. Another OG player claimed he once saw Housemaster on video, and since I'll be exposing the mystery behind Housemaster later, every time there's a clue about him within these other stories, we'll add it to the Housemaster doc. Sriracha chugging buffoons are not the only wild characters found on the old 2b2t. One player named Build Smash was known as 2b2t's priest. According to Clyde, Build Smash spammed Bible verses all day, and he was on the server as much as Pop Bob. He had a Christian skin, and he even helped Clyde build a church. For every question someone asked him, he had a Christian answer. 2b2t is often jokingly referred to as a family-friendly Christian Minecraft server, and this player is the actual origin of that meme. But then, one day, Build Smash told Clyde,
like me specifically, he's like, yeah, I'm going to Africa to like volunteer to help Ebola children. But it's like, okay, and I haven't heard from him since. He's just gone.
2b2t's culture and history was completely altered on June 1st, 2016, when the Camping Rusher joined the server, recorded a video, and posted it to hundreds of thousands of fans. This changed everything. 2b2t went from maybe 100 active players to thousands trying to join. Rusher portrayed the server as a toxic, dangerous place, and gave a certain mystique to 2b2t players. I spoke to Jack the Ripper, who's played 2b2t since 2012. If people join the server trying to act like a caricature of what a 2b2t player is, then this creates a vicious cycle.
There are probably hundreds of kids who've joined over the years and have all attempted to be that ideal 2b2t older player.
And then if that notion is, I have to be like Pop Bob, I have to be like Jared, then that just creates more mini Pop Bobs and mini Jareds.
Yeah, absolutely, that's the case.
How this manifests is, if I find a base, I have to destroy it. It's the belief that anarchy is synonymous with destruction, when in reality, anarchy means you can do whatever you want. If you want to destroy, you can, but that's only one out of a vast array of options. But with this mentality, the lengths people will go to destroy are actually absurd. When Rusher and his fans invaded the server, the old players resisted. Many joined the 4th incursion to fight back, while others still joined Team Veteran, led by FitMC. Either way, several of the leaders of these resistance movements based at the famous Aureus City, which was founded by Kane's Law. Of course, Aureus City became a big target. One of the Aureus members met someone rather rare on the server, a female player named Cancer-chan. She and the Aureus member began talking, and after a couple of months, he trusted her enough to give the rough coordinates of the base. Well, he shouldn't have trusted her at all, because Cancer-chan turned out to be a dude who was acting like a girl to get ahead on the server. Cancer-chan leaked the base's coordinates, and when Rusher got his hands on them, the Aureus crew knew they needed to act. Kane's Law, FitMC, and a few other members destroyed the base before anyone else had the chance to get there. This is far from the only time that a dude has acted like a girl to gain advantage on 2b2t. Of course, one of the biggest tells of whether or not the person you're talking to online is the gender they say they are is to hop on a voice call with them. But that isn't foolproof. The player Killit had a way around even that. Killit's solution? be super young. He started playing 2B2T before his voice dropped in puberty, and he was able to convince a lot of people that he was a girl. When he gained their trust, he also got the coordinates of their bases and stashes. Killit reports that he got into a lot of groups, including Top Kek, Team Keki, the Order of Lucifer, the Vortex Coalition, and Imperium. When Killit was exposed as being a boy, he quit the server, but he eventually came back. If you want to fake being an e-girl to steal people's bases and stashes, but you've already gone through puberty, you could use the strategy used by the Grand Lotus. The Grand Lotus, being a grown man, bought a new Minecraft account, gave it a girl's skin, created a new Discord account and identity, and then started playing. He realized he had to change the way he was typing, but the real test was during the voice calls. During those, he bribed his 14-year-old sister with $20 to act like him. Whenever someone asked Lotus a question, he quickly muted his microphone, told his sister the answer, and then unmuted it for her to say what he told her. Lotus gained the trust of one player who shared all his coordinates, and Lotus went and stole everything. At one of his stashes, he looked at 2B2T's original seed to see what the area looked like before the player built there, and then manually reverted everything. When the player searched for his stash, it looked like it completely vanished, and he searched the whole area around there like crazy, thinking he'd written down the wrong coordinates or something. What's funny is that Lotus, who led the group Highland, actually met up with a whole bunch of 2B2T players in real life, including Bezo Pazan, who is the host of many of these podcasts I'm referencing. Bezo went on a road trip with some other 2B2T friends, but when they saw Lotus, they acted like Bezo was a random homie who never played 2B2T. Lotus had no idea who Bezo was until the middle of the conversation.
And I was like, man, when I'm in New York, I'd love to stop at Highland, New York. I've really wanted to go to Highland. All of a sudden, I see this guy Lotus turn to me mid-sentence and look at me dead in the eyes.
Say that again?
When the camping rusher and all his fans rushed into 2B2T, the server became a high-demand commodity. Housemaster set up a queue system to let players into the server one by one, but it was very poorly made. To keep your place in line, you had to relog every 30 seconds, and it could take days to get through. Rusher and his friend Curtis, who was a developer at Rusher's server, the Archon, built a new queue system for House. This new queue gave veterans, anyone who joined the server before Rusher uploaded his first video, priority access to the server. But beyond this, it also allowed players who wanted to get through the line faster the ability to pay $20 a month, and they'd go through the priority queue. We'll add this whole queue saga to the Housemaster document, but just know that after June 1st, 2016, a lot of people were suddenly willing to pay real money for 2B2T. But why stop at just paying for access to the server? Why not pay to get an advantage in-game as well? A lot of players began to do exactly that. During the Rusher War, I heard that a stack of enchanted golden apples sold for $20. About a year later, when players figured out how to duplicate and utilize illegal backdoored weapons enchanted with max enchantments like Sharpness 32,000, Hermetic Lock, Alpha Computer, and Jack the Ripper sold those for $180 each. They even routed the money through Hermetic Lock's LLC, so they paid proper taxes on it as well. But this became much more difficult in 2017 and 2018 when a series of duplication glitches ravaged the server. One of those duplication glitches was the chunk dupe, which allowed players with advanced systems to duplicate tens of thousands of items a second. As a result, the price of practically every item dropped to almost zero. With supply and demand, what happens if there's an infinite supply? This resulted in hyperinflation so bad, some players compared it to Zimbabwe's economy in 2008. A stack of God apples was $20 in 2016. In 2017, a shulker, or 27 stacks of God apples, was 50 cents. That's a 1,000 times drop in price. The economy had zero chance of recovering from the chunk dupe because Housemaster went 8 months without fixing it. But he was well aware of the dupe. He went to bases like Mu Megabase, which had stashes so large they lagged the server. When he encountered the stashes like these, he removed them, but he still didn't fix the duplication glitch. Did he just not care about the server? Or was he totally negligent to the consequences of the dupe? Well, that's one more thing to add to the Housemaster doc. Another thing players bought from one another is coordinates. When someone discovered the location of end portals illegally placed by Pop Bob himself, there's one person who was interested more than anyone else. That was FitMC. In 2018, Fit began uploading 2b2t history videos, which were popping off, getting millions of views each. And so when Fit caught wind of Pop Bob's illegal end portals, he had to make a video about it. According to legendary base hunter Courier 6, Fit bought the coordinates for $420. Unlike items that won't go anywhere, this definitely paid itself back because the video is now sitting at over 5 million views. Fit was posting a new 2b2t video every single week, but like me, in order to stay monetized on YouTube, he toned down some of the unsavory parts of the server. One danger of this though, I'll admit, is that if kids are watching, they may get a different perspective on the server than is healthy. In a recent live stream, the streamer Onepixel asked Fit something.
If you would have kids, would you let them play 2b2t?
No.
Really?
No.
What?
I would keep them far away from this server. This is not a server for kids.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, I guess technically the content that a lot of the YouTubers make about it is for all ages, but it's not a server for all ages.
But what actually happens when kids start playing 2b2t? How does 2b2t's extreme environment affect a child's development? In his videos, Fit covers the insane things 2b2t players have done, the most extreme that's ever been seen in Minecraft. Whether that be starting an incursion and going to war at spawn, or placing tens of millions of obsidian to put your group's logo in the sky, or even destroying integral parts of the server's history. So now, we have this phenomenon where people join 2b2t with the express intention of getting into a Fit video, and doing whatever they can to get attention. But when people are growing on the server and are influenced by its toxic culture, they learn to contribute to that toxic culture as well. And this can turn very dark very quickly, with people doing things that got the server investigated by another 3-letter agency. During the pandemic, the player Baki Bak Bak was the leader of the Infinity Incursion, a group which took on incredibly large projects. They placed 589,000 obsidian to completely cover 2b2t's spawn, built a lava curtain at the radius of 2,000 blocks, and bombed out the entire nether spawn, so players would be forced to go on the highways. Baki said that during COVID, he and many other people were playing 2b2t 16 hours a day. They were barely eating, barely drinking, and barely sleeping. No way that's healthy.
Dude, I was playing Minecraft 16 hours a day, right? Like, I had all the fucking time. Also, never do that. My health was really, really bad.
Baki described one evening, while the Infinity Incursion was building the spawn water cube, they were sprinting for 18 days straight. In the middle of that project, Baki went out with some friends. Various people drank some funny juice and got intoxicated, and then his friends ran into some people they had beef with. Well, this resulted in a physical altercation, and Baki himself ended up in the hospital. At 8 AM the next morning, his doctors deemed him stable enough to go, so his parents picked him up from the hospital. As soon as he got home, he was back to building the water cube.
And retrospectively, that was such a bad decision because I felt after we were done, I felt so terrible.
Baki is not the only player who's been incredibly addicted to 2b2t. Another player named Super said he was so addicted that he had to come up with a reason to tell people why he was disappearing. So he went around telling people he had to quit because he was diagnosed with leukemia. Super was back on the server 2 weeks later. These players do insane things. Wildgain was trying to meet up with a friend of his who built a base way off the beaten path, so no one would accidentally stumble on it. But this made it incredibly difficult to travel to. Wildgain had to dig a tunnel tens of thousands of blocks through the nether, but he totally underestimated how far the base actually was. While he had enough food to survive the journey, he did not have enough pickaxes. When they broke, Wildgain had to mine through 5,000 blocks of netherrack with his fists. In 2021, the Spawnmasons went public with their biggest project ever, Skymasons. This was one of the largest bases the server had ever seen, a 1,000 by 1,000 block area bombed out from sky to bedrock. The Spawnmasons wanted to show screenshots and videos of the base, so they took steps to protect it. Because dedicated players could reverse engineer coordinates by using natural terrain with 2b2t's world seed, the Masons removed all of it, tens of millions of blocks. But they still needed to be careful about bedrock.
If you were to leak a screenshot of just the normal terrain, or even worse, a screenshot of the bedrock pattern, you can reverse engineer the coordinates by doing a brute force search. People are more than willing to leave their computer running for a couple months in order to crack the locations.
In order to protect that, they covered up the entire bedrock area, which only took 1 million blocks. And with that, Skymasons was safe to show. But one day, the Mason Mothra was live streaming at the base when he accidentally used FreeCam and revealed the bedrock below the covering. That split second was enough for people to reverse engineer the coordinates, and a group of Russian griefers got to work. It took a while for the coordinates to come back, but when they did, it revealed a location 20 million blocks out. Time to get moving. With the travel hacks at the time, it took hundreds of hours to get there through the nether. This took them weeks. But finally they arrived, built the portal, and appeared to nothing. There wasn't a single trace of Skymasons anywhere to be seen. Was there a mistake with their reverse engineering? Did they mess up the bedrock pattern? Checking the bedrock below the location revealed the exact same from the livestream. But where was Skymasons? Well, this was all part of an elaborate troll conducted by Legerv and the Spawnmasons. They created a proxy system that allowed players to log into a separate IP, get connected to an account at Skymasons, and every single action they took was mirrored on 2b2t. If they pressed F3, the coordinates were offset by tens of millions of blocks. They even replaced the bedrock with the offset location. When Mothra showed the bedrock in the livestream, it was no accident. He knew what he was doing, and that it would waste weeks of the griefers' lives. I don't know who's crazier, the griefers who wasted hundreds of hours to destroy a base that wasn't there, or the Masons who spent all this time creating the elaborate system to troll them. In speaking about Fit, the YouTuber and podcaster DigMC said,
I mean, my biggest gripe against him is how he portrays the server as family friendly to an audience of, kids who are going to join and can get, pulled into all this like neo-Nazi edgy bullshit.
The reality of humans is their thoughts, and our thoughts cannot be segregated from our environment. And if we're in one environment for 16 hours a day, there's no way that doesn't affect our thoughts or behavior. The player IMEM started playing 2b2t when he was 12, and its addictive nature essentially took away his childhood. And of course, this was going to affect him. IMEM said he was constantly playing with a bunch of racist 25-year-olds, and that influenced him a lot. As a result, he said he fell down the alt-right pipeline.
Yeah, I think at one point I was so deeply online that I was even really radicalized by 2B.
IMEMs fortunately grew out of that, but when I talked to Jack the Ripper, he said political radicalization is not the only dark path he's seen players go down. He outlined another, particularly for those drawn to competition.
There are a lot of people who are competitive, and inevitably, there is a subsection of people who will learn about the PvP meta. right? And they really enjoy PvP, and they want to PvP so badly. They'll go out there, they'll learn the tricks of the trade, and they'll start trying to get good at it. But inevitably, they will encounter someone better than them, as is the nature of any online PvP.
And if you can't beat someone in PvP, what can you do? Well, you go after them. And there's nothing stopping players from
figuring out who this person is, finding out where they live, harassing them and their family and friends. You know, they'll just go crazy on people if it comes down to that. There are a lot of groups that make it their job to just absolutely ruin other people's lives if they do or say things they don't like.
Take the case of a player I'll call Nez. Nez got into the crosshairs of a group I'll call Kronos, a crystal PvP group infamous for doxing people and even swatting them. When Kronos wanted to go after Nez, they found his personal information and allegedly hired multiple people to go to Nez's house and throw bricks through his window. I think doxing is a step too far, and this is way beyond that. Another situation happened when the player Tavix was doxed. People found out where he lived and what school he went to. Well, there was actually a fire at his school, and another 2b2t player called the school telling them that Tavix was the one who started it. 2b2t pushes people to no longer have any boundaries, no longer have any line they won't cross. And there's two stories that illustrate this. The first shows the lengths players will go to gain an advantage over other players and take out the competition, potentially committing a federal crime along the way. And the second resulted in 2b2t's second federal investigation. In December 2021, Alibaba's cloud security team found a security issue with Java, something that had been hiding in the Java software for 8 years. Every message that is ever sent on programs using Java, emails, usernames, or even Minecraft chat messages is sent to a Java log. But one specific string, when sent to that log, could activate a payload of code. And that payload could do whatever you want it to. Archive every private message that's ever been sent, steal someone's bank login, take total control of their computer, all from a single string of text. And that string could be sent in Minecraft chat. Because of the Java log, this exploit is called log4j. Despite how dangerous this is, when Alibaba's security team quietly reported the bug, the Java team didn't take it too seriously. That was until the bug leaked. And then it was everywhere, including 2b2t. With less than 48 hours before the exploit was sure to be patched, a group known as the Brown Men got to work. What payloads would 2b2t programmers create? Ones that steal coordinates, of course. But they didn't have experience with operating system coding. They'd never developed anything like this. They had to get grinding. The Brown Men aren't the only 2b2t players writing payloads though. So is the programmer Ox22, as well as another group. Log4j is used on 2b2t for the first time. No one had developed a payload for it, but they just sent the message. As a result, people's computers tried to run a payload, but there was no payload to run. Either way, it took processing power to do this, so spamming the message lagged people's computers. And you can guess what 2b2t players did. Meanwhile, Housemaster didn't know what to do. He couldn't patch the exploit. That had to come from Java themselves. So he shut down 2b2t. You can no longer log in. Seeing this, the Brown Men almost completely gave up, assuming the exploit would be patched by the time 2b2t came back online. Many hours passed, and Housemaster had an idea. What if he made it impossible for players to send the JNDI and LDAP and the other symbols the log4j string uses? Housemaster muted any messages with those characters, and 2b2t was back online. Players are safe, right? Wrong. Ox22 types a different string into chat, and many 2b2t players' calculator app opens, and a message is sent on their computer. Hello from Minecraft RCE exploit. Ox22 wasn't done though. He saw an opportunity to save people from the exploit, so he got back to work. The brown men got back to coding as well. After a few hours of work and figuring out a way to secure their own computers against the exploit, the brown men finally finished their payload. With one chat message, they got access to the coordinates, IP, Discord tokens, waypoints, and Minecraft tokens of half of the people online at the time. This was over 100 players, and Redstoner started to have some fun. Imagine you're at an item stash when suddenly you see your alt account moving around, and you're the only one with the login to it. This is exactly what happened with one item shop owner who saw Redstoner on his alt placing a TNT. The shop owner logged into his account, kicking Redstoner off, but Redstoner logged into the guy's main. Suddenly, the roles are reversed. Now you're on your alt, seeing your main placing TNT. The shop owner logged into his main, so Redstoner went back to the alt. Every switch, Redstoner placed a little more TNT, and he described this as musical chairs. He said they went back and forth like this for an hour until he was finally able to destroy the base. Ox22 finished coding a protection against other Log4j attacks, but he needed a way to get people to run it on their computers. And what better way to run that code than by using the Log4j exploit itself? Ox22 forcefully ran the patch for every person on 2b2t, using the exploit to destroy the exploit.
Yeah, the only thing that stopped the exploit from causing a lot more damage was time. Because from personal experience, watching the payload being developed, it took many hours, like 16 plus hours, and by the time it was fully developed, ready to go, most people had it patched. And that kind of stopped people from doing crazy stuff, from like getting operator on 2B or getting creative mode or whatever.
Apart from the time factor Redstoner mentioned, Log4j had limited fallout in Minecraft because to abuse it, you needed to have a good understanding of Java development and cybersecurity. Rebane said the scariest part of this is that the exploit was in the code for 8 years, and it's very likely an intelligence agency stumbled upon it and used it to attack certain targets without telling anyone about it. On 2b2t, the Log4j exploit was finally over when the 2b2t admin blocked the symbols like brackets and $signs from the chat, which blocked all variations of the Log4j exploit string to be posted at all. But the Log4j isn't what got 2b2t placed on a government watch list. That was something else, which happened years earlier. Using the Freedom of Information Act, someone got the Department of Homeland Security, the United States' counterterrorism agency, to release the information they have on 2b2t. This is from the Department of Homeland Security's official government website. Records pertaining to a ICE Homeland Security investigations incident that occurred in November of 2016. The video game Minecraft server 2builders2tools, 2b2t.org, was investigated by the Department of Homeland Security due to 2builders2tools having a bot account that would search on google.com any message that users requested via in-game chat. Someone created an account called 2b2t Google, which was logged into 2b2t and did something very simple. Whenever someone sent a message to the account, 2b2t Google searched that message up on Google. Back to the report. This resulted in users typing in requests to the bot to search, such as how to make a bomb and how to join ISIS. After the investigation, the government determined 2b2t players were not actually intending to commit terrorist acts, so they let the server be. But maybe there's things that they really should have paid much more attention to. In FitMC's video, how an actual crime destroyed this 2b2t base, he tells the story of Avalicium and how its coordinates were found when a griefer, who was friends with one of the members, went to his house and stuck his laptop with a USB stick. He used this to get the coordinates to the base, which is a federal crime. But is that really what happened? The true story is a bit more complicated. Avalicium was a great base that was home to dozens of people, including a player named Bard, who was real-life friends with another player, Oddpay. Oddpay and Bard talked about 2B2T and hung out together. They even went to each other's houses to play. Bard went to Oddpay's house one time, and Oddpay let him use his laptop. But eventually their friendship lost its strength.
You know, we kind of drifted apart IRL, or just in general, like leading up to the whole Elysium event.
One day, Oddpay took that very same laptop with him on vacation. It was then that he saw that Bard was logged into his Discord account, and right in the Discord, Oddpay saw the coordinates to Elysium, -7 million, 3 million. Since at this point he and Bard weren't close, he made a rash decision without thinking it through. He took the coordinates to the griefing group, the Backstreet Boys. He talked to them and came to a deal. He'd give the coordinates in exchange for getting promoted in their group. On top of that, the Backstreet Boys would find a scapegoat to blame for the grief, so Oddpay would get away with it completely. The Backstreet Boys didn't know how Oddpay got the coordinates, but a week later they saw him screen sharing the chat logs of Elysium's Discord server and realized that he had gotten access to Bard's Discord account. They could only think of two ways that he could have done this. One, he token logged Bard, stealing his Discord token to log in with, or he stuck a USB stick into Bard's computer that stole Bard's Discord account. Either way, they were ready to grief the base. They chose a date, Sunday, April 18th. But then, Oddpay had a chilling conversation with Tectonic, a member of the Spawn Masons.
And he was like, oh, nothing much, just gonna head to my stash. I was like, where's your stash at? And he was like, 7 mil, -3 mil. It's a little far out. And I was like, bro, what the f***? I was like, this guy has Elysium codes.
Tectonic used the Nocom coordinate exploit to know the exact location of Elysium, and Oddpay realized they had to grief the base sooner. So they destroyed it, 2 days earlier than planned. Even when the Backstreet Boys found out how Oddpay actually got the coordinates, they still spread the USB stick story because they thought it was funny and could get a cool FitMC video out of it. Bard was furious about this breach of trust, and he live streamed himself going to Oddpay's house, yelling out his family's name and address. That's pretty messed up. What both Oddpay and Bard did was wrong, but we also have to remember that when this happened, Oddpay was 14. After this, the two of them apologized to one another, and Oddpay redeemed his reputation in the eyes of the 2B2T community. But do you remember the dark path Jack the Ripper described for those who were very competitive, who went down the PvP rabbit hole? Well, those PvPers are the most dedicated, the most combative, and potentially the most dangerous people out of anyone on the server. For example, the group Imperium. They had several rivals, including Highland and the group Infrared. Highland, which was run by the Grand Lotus, was the biggest group on the server for a while, but the Imperium wanted to take them down. So what they did is they created what the Dark Emperor, the leader of Imperium, called a 4D chess move.
Once we start to get into the history of Imperium, it's just like a long list of power plays and political moves.
In early 2018, they launched what they called the United Group Embassy, which was, on its surface, a project made to increase group cooperation. Its stated goal was to create a United Nations for 2B2T. About 15 groups joined, but what they didn't realize is that uniting 2B2T groups was not the Imperium's intention at all. Imperium's intention was to take them over, or destroy them. Highland and Infrared joined the United Group Embassy to see what it was about, but when they did, the Dark Emperor and the Imperium members bullied and harassed the Grand Lotus until Lotus got mad enough to leak the group's embassy base. When the base was destroyed, who did people blame? Emperor or Lotus? Everyone got mad at Lotus. The other factions of the United Group Embassy declared war on Highland, but the Imperium was the only one that had the forces to fight Highland at spawn. So, to go after Highland, the other embassy factions joined Imperium. They pulled the same move with their enemy Infrared, and as a result, in a 6-month period, the Imperium's membership doubled twice. In doing so, they cemented themselves as the biggest group on the server, and the only thing that could stop them was an actual federal crime. Let me explain. Around this time, a French YouTuber with over 1 million subscribers posted a video on the server. His name was Fuse3, and he started a series that brought tons of his French viewers into 2b2t. In response, the community started the 7th incursion, which had the goals of building a colossal lava wall around spawn named the French Friar, and a trench at a 2,000 block radius around spawn. The incursion was originally run by Henry, but he stepped down, so they voted on their next leader. Jared 2013 came out on top, but the incursion quickly fell apart when he began banning disruptive people who then sought to resist the incursion and made the anti-incursion movement. According to the Dark Emperor, Imperium allowed Jared to take over the incursion because he said that Jared would get super invested in the server and play for 3 days straight without stopping. Who was better to lead the incursion than that? But then, when all this drama went down, the Imperium felt like the incursion was failing. But another leader of the incursion, the OG player Police Mike 55, told the Dark Emperor that Jared was planning to take over all the groups in the incursion. Based on this information, the Imperium left and nuked the Discord. Because of this, Jared declared war. There are layers and layers of deception going on. While Police Mike was reporting things to Imperium, he was also reporting things back to Jared 2013. He was playing both sides. But at the same time, Police Mike 55 was a complete imposter. The original Police Mike, who performed the first backdoor with Pop Bob, quit 2b2t and sold his account to a guy named Lucas. Lucas bought it for $50 in order to get the veteran queue, and at that point, the original Police Mike didn't care about Minecraft anymore. When Lucas joined 2b2t on Police Mike's account, Jared 2013 recognized him and immediately invited him to join a grief he was doing. Lucas, playing on Police Mike's account, didn't deny that he wasn't Mike, he just kinda went with it. When another OG player named Oxymoron started a base called Ragnarok with players who had been around before the Camping Rushers invasion, Lucas went there and made connections with all of those guys. Lucas just assumed Police Mike's identity. This guy was everywhere. He was even invited to the Spawn Masons, one of the top groups on the server, and when he joined, for some reason, the player Nordic93 accused him of being the fake Police Mike. But Nordic had zero evidence, and no one else had any suspicions because when the original Police Mike played, that was way before Discord. The only people who might have heard his voice on Skype no longer played 2b2t. When Bezo Pazan interviewed OG players on the Dr. Enderpickle show, Lucas showed up and acted like Police Mike 55, giving vague answers to all the questions, like he was giving a book report on a book he never read. It was only when Lucas made a Reddit post about Police Mike 55's history did another player named XCC2 get suspicious. He sent the post to iTristan, and Tristan messaged the original Police Mike on Snapchat and was like, "Yo, is this you?" Police Mike said no, and that's when the entire thing got exposed. Fit made a video about it.
What would happen if you decided to steal their identity? Their username, their mannerisms, even their Minecraft skin. Everything about them.
And the original Police Mike said that this was pretty true from his perspective. As for Lucas, here's what he had to say about it.
You said it was true from your perspective. For me, I was just getting roasted the whole time.
Yeah, that's what I
This loser took his cape, mannerisms, and all of his stuff. And I'm like, oh my god.
Yeah,
I mean,
the outrage
that's
that
brutal.
Toadrak, one of the players who knew Lucas, said,
"Oh yeah, it is like it's strange. It's objectively strange, but that guy." We like to call him Lucas. He's a super nice guy. Like, he's pretty down to earth and he's chill.
He's so cool. I mean,
Toadrak even said that the fake Police Mike was cooler than the original Police Mike. And after Lucas quit the server after getting exposed, Bezo Pazan interviewed both Police Mikes at the same time. Hermetic Lot commented, "Much love to you, Lucas. Miss interacting with you, bro. I was never upset with you over the whole thing. We all like you for you, not for any special old player status." Another viewer said, As an Imperium member at the time it all happened, I can say that we were all just kinda sad that he left, because he was a cool guy. When Police Mike gave information to the Imperium about what Jared was planning to do, and then the Imperium nuked the Incursion Discord, Jared declared war on them. And what was Jared's main weapon? Doxxing and harassment. Jared created a group called Huggy Town, which consisted of players like Halt Account, Police Mike, and Boo Boy. Boo Boy was sent on a mission to infiltrate Imperium from the inside and act as a spy. Meanwhile, Jared targeted Imperium members, found their personal information, which included one player I'll call Epsilon. They found his name, his address, and even ordered pizzas to his house, forcing him to pay for them. Some people allegedly threatened to swat him. When looking at Epsilon's address on Google Street View, it showed his home had a gas tank outside of it, which somebody joked about hiring a homeless man to go explode. At some point, one of the members of Huggy Town, who I haven't mentioned, himself suffering from certain mental health issues, turned his ire toward Jared. He found an address he thought was Jared's, went through the mailbox of that home, and tried to confirm whether or not it was his. During all this, Boo was infiltrating Imperium. He joined the group at their lowest rank, but he was such a cool guy that he quickly climbed up and got promoted. Eventually, he reached one of their highest ranks, Delta. As a result, he had access to many of Imperium's bases and stashes. One day, he went to a stash which had over 200 double chests of shulkers. That meant thousands upon thousands of items. To steal it, Boo moved the stash a couple 100,000 blocks away, but Imperium somehow found out where the new location was, though they didn't know Boo was the one who had stolen it. The Imperium sent an operation to steal the stuff back, so they joined a big voice call, which Boo joined in as well. While they were trying to retrieve the items, Boo, listening in to their conversations, logged into one of Jared's accounts and blew up the stash. For 8 months, Boo acted like a friend of Imperium's and helped them, just to sabotage them from the inside. He was eventually outed when screenshots leaked from Jared's group showing he had been scheming with Jared the entire time. After this, Imperium wanted Jared off the server by any means necessary. They called the FBI to report him as a criminal. The Dark Emperor himself was on that call, and at the end, the officer he spoke with said, "Thanks for the report. Please let us know if you want to add anything else." About a week after that happened, Jared disappeared from the server. At the same time, a guy who was the same age and in the same area as Jared was arrested by the FBI for the crimes Imperium reported him for. Across the server, players spread the news that Jared had been arrested. Someone even made an account called Jailed 2013 to mock him. In reality, Jared had just taken a break from 2B2T without telling anyone. When he returned weeks later, it proved he hadn't been arrested, since he obviously couldn't have played 2B2T from jail. With all this stuff about doxing, dude, keep your personal information safe. I'd transition to a privacy service sponsorship if I had one, but unfortunately I don't. Crazy stuff can happen when people have your info. Jared had the coordinates to Totorak's base Turim, and he didn't tell anyone he had them until he griefed the base on Totorak's real-life birthday. Jared claimed it was a coincidence, but that seems highly unlikely. At some point, even the Dark Emperor's face was leaked into the 2B2T community, and someone built his likeness as a map art. These guys fight dirty. Jared got access to the Dark Emperor's account using the authentication exploit and went on NameMC, linking it with another account that sounds like PDF file.
Okay, no, how about this? Here's go on my account right now. It's linked with that Jared did that because he got access to my account.
But despite all the doxing and harassment, the only thing that could truly take down the Imperium was a federal crime, and the crime wasn't even directed at them. 2B2T's meta is crystal PvP, placing end crystals on top of your enemies and exploding them. Thus, the hack called Crystal Aura is one of the most effective because it automatically places and detonates the end crystals. Because of this, groups like Imperium were always looking for a better version of Crystal Aura to gain a PvP advantage. That's when they heard rumor of a new client that had a version of Crystal Aura far superior to anything that had been developed before. The developers Earthquake, Crystal Link, Megan, and O'Hare had spent months coding a client called Phobos. When word spread about Phobos' capabilities, other client developers realized how much of a threat it would be. For example, the developer of another client, Worst+2, was not happy about this because it meant people would install Phobos rather than his client. Because of that, he created a special version of Worst+2 that had a remote access Trojan and a token logger, so he could get into the computer of whoever installed it. Ratting someone's computer is a federal crime, but the developer of Worst+2 didn't care. He sent it straight to Crystal Link. Using the rat and token logger, he confirmed that Phobos was real and stole the code that they had been working on. When Crystal Link and the others realized what had happened, they rushed to finish developing Phobos before the other dev could use it. 2 weeks before Phobos was set to release, they dropped it. Word quickly spread about it, and Imperium members downloaded it in droves. But it wasn't just Imperium. At launch, Phobos reached 100 downloads an hour, and after just a single day, the total downloads exceeded 4,000. But then, people's bases began to get destroyed. That's when one of the friends of the developer announced that Phobos had a token logger. He sent a message on Discord saying, "Good luck finding it." Ox22 searched through the code and didn't only find the token logger, but found much, much more. Phobos was designed to search through people's files for hacked clients, take screenshots of their desktops, steal Minecraft coordinates, Discord tokens, Minecraft accounts, and even Chrome passwords, which could include credit cards and banking info. This was the plan from the beginning. The Phobos developers wanted to use the client to democratize the client space, since many private clients were locked to certain groups. As a result, they included code that searched through people's files for other hacked clients, so they can copy them and release them for free. This was successful, since they were able to leak the private clients of Zulu and Oive. Because Phobos stole people's coordinates, almost every single Imperium base was compromised. But that was nothing compared to the personal information gathered. Since so many Imperium members installed the client directly, over 70% of the group quit. This practically killed Imperium and ended the war. The Phobos developers committed a federal crime, and many people reported them to the FBI, but to my knowledge, nothing came of that. My one question throughout all of this is, who allowed this to happen? Who created this environment that spawned such toxicity, where players are harassing each other, committing crimes, just to get at one another? Who is Housemaster? I've spent dozens of hours researching to find every single clue I possibly can about the dealings of Housemaster, starting in December 2010 when he and George Bush 420 created 2B2T. And believe me, this stuff is wild. After 2B2T began, Housemaster appeared on the server ever so often. He was known to play and was semi-involved in the community, messing with different players. For example, on multiple occasions, he used commands to create lightning storms at spawn, which definitely frightened others. But there was another account called server_operator, who was seen online from time to time. While this section is about the full timeline of Housemaster, it also involves some insane stories from the community. Housemaster was on the server doing his best to patch various exploits. For example, in 2012, if you logged out at certain parts of the map, you could get teleported to the nether roof with no way to get down. As a result, House had to constantly help players down, and this was a big headache. That's when Pop Bob and his friends had an idea. They could help Housemaster fix the glitch, but at the same time get backdoor access to the server. So what Pop Bob and his friends did is they created a plugin that allowed anyone who was stuck on the nether roof to type the command /stuck, and this would teleport them down. But the plugin also gave PopBob and his friends access to the Too Many Items mod, which let them spawn in anything they wanted, as well as other server permissions. With this, they built the base called Plugin Town, using all of these insane items. Then, when Housemaster received reports that PopBob was teleporting to people's bases and destroying them, he set up a fake base with other people. When PopBob showed up there, he had proof with his own eyes that the server had been backdoored. Already, even in the days of 2012, we see this antagonistic relationship between the player base and Housemaster, where the players are trying to deceive him into installing plugins that give them an unfair advantage on the server. In fact, this happened multiple times. In mid-2012, PopBob and X0XP had an exploit that allowed minecarts to travel super fast without rails. If they did this, they could generate tons of chunks super quickly, which lagged the server a lot. PopBob and X0XP wrote a plugin that fixed this exploit, but it also had a backdoor in it. So they brought this to Housemaster. Housemaster, who doesn't have much coding experience, was wary about the previous time he had installed a plugin recommended by players. So instead, he gave it to a developer friend of his named Ben Jojo. Ben Jojo examined the plugin and saw that it had an auto updater, which meant that PopBob could add any code he wanted to the plugin. If he wanted to spawn in any item, he could. At this point in mid-2012, there are 3 known operators of the server: Housemaster, George Bush 420, and Ben Jojo. 2B2T players, apart from chatting with each other on the server itself, also joined the Tiny Chat, where they saw one another in the video calls. Monoxide, an OG 2B2T player, said one time he saw Housemaster himself join the 2B2T Tiny Chat. He said that House was wearing a mask and a fedora and had a Brad Pitt pinwheel flag on his wall. According to the 2B2T wiki, Ben Jojo later quit the server because he felt like the player base was full of what we would describe as neo Brad Pitt enjoyers. At some point in an email, Housemaster said he no longer actively plays 2B2T nor follows what's happening on the server, but he does continue to patch exploits. In May of that year, House set up a website, 2b2t.net, where he demanded donations to keep the server running. He wrote, "The server cost me $95 each month and so far has cost me alone a total of $2,050. When this happened, 2b2t's player base had to get together and hit that donation goal in order to keep the server alive. In February of the next year, 2013, the message on the website stated something very similar to what we just read, but with an added message saying, "Since May, I have decided to leave the server over to the community to run itself. It will be paid for by its players, but I will still maintain it with the time I have left." He then added, "This is absolutely profit-free for me, and the PayPal account is automated to pay the ISP, Internet Service Provider, which I bought specifically for this server. I get no gains from it other than having to not pay the entire expensive bill." 3 months later in May, House increased 2b2t's monthly donation goal from $95 to $125, but it dropped back down to $90 later on. House repeatedly stressed that he no longer had the time, the interest, or the desire to continue to maintain the server. In September of 2013, he made an ultimatum. He wrote that the server was clearly dying, as it had reached the lowest average players in a long time. He encouraged 2b2t players to go to different server lists and forums like 4chan, Facepunch, Planet Minecraft, and Reddit, and tried to attract new players. In November, House made a website change to include the famous Jesus statue at Imperator's base. Then, a month after that, he added a donation goal to revamp the website. He said that, "The new website still needs funding. So far, 50 euros has been donated, and cost is estimated to be 200 euros, and there is no deadline for this." That same month, December 2013, Pyrobyte and iTristan gave a plugin to Housemaster to disable access to the nether roof and supposedly fix an issue with anvils. However, the plugin also made it so that if they renamed items to a certain string of letters, it made those items have a stack size of -1. Negative items can be tossed out infinitely, and the plugin also had an auto updater, which allowed Tristan and Pyrobyte to add modifications. They were able to spawn any item they wanted, teleport, and change game mode. Using this, they teleported to the world border and placed signs outside of it. I guess Housemaster had forgotten his lesson from Pop Bob, or just trusted Pyro and Tristan in a different way, or stopped caring about the server at all. By 2014, it seemed Housemaster's only real involvement in the community was on the annual April Fool's event. So for this year, he changed the website to be hacked by CatWhisperer420, who's an admin on the 2b2t subreddit. Around this time, the server was down for an entire month, so Pyrobyte and Clyde created a new server called 3b3t. Around this time, Jack the Ripper documented Housemaster going on a crazy rant about America, and then says, 5 actual players, 23 farmer bots, dead server. Okay, server is clearly 3 players and 25 bots. Bye. So it appears that Housemaster was completely losing interest in the server, and that's when, on July 31st, 2014, an infamous message appeared on the website. It said, Housemaster has left 2b2t forever and is no longer in charge. The server will continue like normal though, and will be operated by an anonymous friend. Soon after this, the message was removed from the website. Some people thought this was just a troll, but Housemaster's email tone changed from polite to rude, indicating that there was a different person responding. To add even more proof to this, a little less than a year later, Housemaster's Minecraft account name was changed to house_master, and then after that, changed to the word expunged, which means to erase or remove completely. And then years later, the account was deleted entirely. Many people believe that the new server owner, or anonymous friend, that the website referred to is George Bush 420, whose account was spotted on the server after this. I'm gonna put a current Housemaster identity, or identities, in the top left of the screen, and it'll remain there for the rest of the section. I believe George Bush 420 took on Housemaster's identity, and the name is actually like Dread Pirate Roberts. If you're not familiar with The Princess Bride, Dread Pirate Roberts is a title held by many people over time, each pirate passing the name on to the next. While I'll consistently refer to the server owner as Housemaster, the actual identity of who that refers to will differ over time. In August of 2015, the website updated again, saying that it was now set up on automatic payments from the PayPal account, which needs at least $90 a month to pay for itself. It also said that if the server goes unpaid for a week after the month ends, it will automatically shut down. Once the server eventually dies, the world will be released as a torrent. Based on this, it seems that the server was definitely dying, but players were willing to pay to keep it alive. In October, the website reported that a new website will appear to replace this one. The website saga is one that actually nearly killed the server entirely. Remember how House had set a goal of 250 euros to bring the website back? Well, no one actually thought that that would be hit, but it was over the course of 6 months. This was done almost single-handedly from the contributions of Imperator to Rai. But when the goal was hit, the new website didn't arrive, most likely because that money just went into other server costs. Still, the player base wanted a website, so Tristan, Clyde, and Imperator to Rai said, fine. Do it myself. Tristan and Clyde created that website. They included a backdoor, which gave them access to the server box that 2b2t was run on. They sent this website to Housemaster, but remember, this is not the same Housemaster who was tricked by Pop Bob and Tristan before. Not knowing any better, Housemaster ran it. This gave them backdoor access to the server, and they created a bunch of stashes, including one called The Archive, a bedrock sphere filled to the brim with illegal items and weapons. Jared 2013, Taylor112, iTristan, and Pop Bob destroyed a number of bases using this backdoor in the event called the Week of Destruction. But when Jared leaked a screenshot of the archive, Sato saw it and posted it to the 2b2t subreddit saying, "Public service announcement, 2b2t is backdoored." He called the group the Tyranny. The craziest part about this though is a screenshot taken by Jared. It shows George Bush 420 building with bedrock right next to Talo 112. How could this happen? Did they hack into his account? Could they impersonate players? Well, Jared told me that George Bush was actually friends with Tristan and Clyde, and he didn't care that they had backdoored 2B2T. Speaking about this, the OG player Frickin' remarked that Housemaster did an April Fool's event every single year.
He'd do these April Fool's maps every, April 1st of every year, but he didn't do one in 2016. But literally the only thing he did was upgrade the server to 1.9, which was like really laggy. He just didn't care about the server anymore, and I'm pretty sure he wanted to sell the server too. In fact, I think he almost did.
Frickin' claims that Housemaster even almost sold the server to another 2B2T player. But then, the server was saved by the most unlikely person. On June 1st, 2016, when the Camping Rusher uploaded its video, thousands of players were suddenly trying to join 2B2T. Housemaster didn't know what to do. Then, he had an idea, a queue system. House created a queue which let people join 2B2T one at a time. Unfortunately, this was not very effective, partly because you needed to reconnect every 30 seconds in order to keep your position in line. On top of this, the old players were furious because suddenly the server they called home for years was impossible for them to join. The Camping Rusher, who had been running his own server, the Archon, for years, knew how to deal with servers with large amounts of players, and offered to help. He and his friend Curtis, one of the Archon's developers, set up a new queue system which was much smoother. To solve the issue of OG players not being able to get in, Rusher suggested adding a veteran queue, so that they could skip to the front of the line. On top of this, there would also be a priority queue where those willing to pay $20 a month could skip the line as well. But since the veteran and priority members went straight to the front of the line, regular players in the queue would often see their position and estimated time to join the server increase. In response to this, the server reserved a certain number of player slots for priority members and a certain number for regular, effectively making 2 lines. All of this made 2B2T actually playable again, but people were suspicious about the sudden influence Rusher and Curtis had over the server. These two people with zero history on the Anarchy server were overnight in charge of the system that let people into the game. And did they have admin privileges as well? They claimed Rusher and Curtis didn't have any power over the server, but how could that be the case when they were in charge of the queue, and Curtis even became a moderator on the 2B2T subreddit? Many people were furious. In many OG players' eyes, Rusher joining the server absolutely ruined it. To get him back, one player hacked into the Skype account of Rusher's friend, the YouTuber Landon MC. From Landon's account, the hacker told Rusher, if you do not leave our server, you and your friends will continue to get hacked. A 2B2T YouTuber named Taragadude made a video where he was very excited about Landon getting hacked, and then showed footage of Landon's account getting bed trapped on 2B2T. This made the Camping Rusher himself very angry.
He gave me the impression that this Toro guy was either friends with the hacker, was involved with the hacking, and that's what kind of drew the line from, and that was not...
We told Curtis to remove Taragadude from the veteran queue. In doing so, the Camping Rusher had effectively banned Taragadude from 2B2T, forcing him to pay $20 a month if he ever wanted to actually play on the server again. This raised major questions about how much influence the Camping Rusher had over the server. Was House even in control anymore? Did 2B2T just turn into another generic Minecraft server with corrupt admins slowly falling down the pay-to-win route? Well, on August 20th, 2016, Housemaster made a post on the 2B2T subreddit to try to clear the air. He said, "I'm still owning the servers, except the DDoS protection, which will explain some of your very badly conceived theories about things changing. It is the same server since early June, which I alone rented with generous donations from players, long before Rusher offered to help. Nobody but me was involved in the server upgrade." I think the top comment from Dr. Zombie sums it up well. I like the part where House came and said we were all full of and creating conspiracy theories, and then the camping rusher came out and said we were completely correct about literally everything. What Dr. Zombie is referring to is a video that Rusher posted explaining the whole situation with Taragadude. Let's go through the entire thing. This is the full saga explained from Rusher's perspective.
But at the time, even, like, you know, those first 5 episodes, the first one did like 2.3 million, and then it was like, oh, everyone was over 500,000 from there.
When his first video dropped, it absolutely exploded. This was the biggest series he'd ever seen on his channel, and he wanted to double down as much as possible. But there were 2 major challenges in doing this. First, Rusher and his friend Mitch were having an incredibly difficult time recording the next ones in the series. Just to get onto 2B2T, they had to stay up late into the night and wait 4 to 5 hours in the queue. To have a much better chance of actually being able to record these videos and get that ad revenue, Rusher emailed Housemaster asking for a waitlist.
Like, I asked, what do I have to offer you in order to get a whitelist? And he basically responded, hey man, that's not fair. We're not going to do that.
The second challenge to continuing the series was 2B2T's instability. The server was getting DDoSed and could go down entirely. Rusher wanted the security of knowing 2B2T wouldn't disappear, and given his own experience with hosting big servers, he asked Housemaster if he could buy it. Housemaster denied this offer, but then came up with the queue idea, where there would be a veteran queue for OG players. Rusher was on board with this and also suggested a priority queue system where players could pay to skip the queue, and he and Housemaster could partner up to do this. Rusher said that, of course, part of the motivation for doing this was profit, but it wasn't as if they were trying to exploit the server for money. Housemaster himself had gotten over 200 emails from players asking if they could pay to skip the queue. So Rusher and Curtis created the priority queue. They also bought DDoS protection, created the queue plugin, and covered the cost of the server machines. They also planned to have one of their developers come on and make the server less laggy. This would cost anywhere in the range of $1,000 to $2,000. Now, there's already contradictions between what Rusher said and Housemaster's Reddit post. For example, the line, "Nobody but me was involved in the server upgrade." As Rusher said,
we bought DDoS protection, we obviously created the queue plugin, we covered the cost of the server machines. That was all coming out of my pocket. I mean,
Taragadude drama went down. Rusher told Curtis to take Taragadude out of the veteran queue. They could do this since they built the queue. Players were furious, but this wasn't even their first accusation saying Rusher was abusing his power. When Landon was hacked, messages between him and Rusher revealed that Rusher gave him free access to priority queue. In Rusher's mind, making a video promoting the server was sufficient payment, but people were not happy about this. After restoring Taragadude's veteran queue status, Rusher said that he and Curtis would never remove anyone from the veteran queue again. He also revealed that he gets less than half of the cut from priority queue, and in that video, he offered to put the money somewhere else, a charity or organization if people wanted it, but that didn't end up happening. Hacking Landon MC was not the only thing 2B2T players did to try spook Rusher off the server. Someone figured out who Rusher's mother is, leaked her picture and Twitter handle, hoping that someone would get her to convince Rusher to quit the server. Yikes. Over the next couple of months, the drama settled down and 2B2T went into a state of equilibrium. A little over a year later, in July of 2017, FitMC actually met Rusher at VidCon, and Fit confirmed that Rusher and his associates were still getting a cut of priority queue. So while Rusher may have had a great influence on the server, it's likely that Housemaster, at this point in time, was still the main owner. Housemaster, of course, being George Bush 420. We still don't know much about who that is, but we can get some clues from the game with an incredibly strange event that occurred in August of 2016. A user on Reddit named Grey Sage made a post saying that he had found Housemaster's base and then it had totally disappeared. What? As he described, one of his friends was out exploring about 40,000 blocks from spawn when she found a strange base owned by a player named George Bush 420. She told Sage about this, and Sage went there as well. When he arrived, he saw George Bush digging out a giant diamond pinwheel. Sage said that George was friendly to him and said that he was free to take anything he wanted from the chests, and he'd also let his friends know not to attack Sage. But what happened next is incredibly bizarre. Here's how Sage described it. I logged in the next day only to find the base gone. When I say gone, I don't mean it was torn down. It was as if there were no traces of anyone ever being there. Not only were any of the structures there anymore, but all the terrain was repaired. The massive holes that went down to bedrock were once again filled with smooth stone and ores. The tunnels they used to mine no longer had torches, and all the diamonds and gold ore had been placed right back where they were. Given the block patterns, it definitely does look like the base was world edited. But why would Housemaster do this? FitMC made a video about the whole situation titled The 2B2T Base That Disappeared. Seeing that video, a player named Hey It's Azerbaijan informed Sage that he believes the base didn't disappear because Sage found it, but because he and his friends had griefed it. He then linked a video to that grief. At the end of his own video, Fit said that an anonymous source told him that after the base disappeared, Clyde, member of the Tyranny, was seen walking around it while screen sharing. So the base was griefed, then disappeared, but actually still exists? 2 years later, Clyde was interviewed and spoke about Housemaster's base. He said it exists, that he's visited it, despite it being kept secret from most players. The only way to prove that it was moved would be to find it, and that's exactly what the base hunter Chrome Crusher did. If you go to the location Chrome Crusher discovered and then dig down to the bedrock, it'll reveal the pattern that is exactly the same as the original, proving that it had been world edited. In a chest there's an elytra that belonged to Clyde, meaning it's possible that George Bush was basing with the members of the Tyranny, which does line up with what Jared claims about the narrative and the Tyranny and George Bush being friends with one another. Honestly, the craziest part is the fact that the owner of the server had this type of base. And this isn't even the only base from Housemaster that players discovered, but we'll get to that in a bit. In July of 2017, Housemaster patched illegal items like pig spawners, player heads, and enchanted glass. But in the process, he accidentally deleted sharpness off of axes, efficiency from shears, and all dungeon spawners. Players weren't happy about this, but it never got reverted. In September, a player named Griff, who built lag machines to lag the server tremendously, apparently had his veteran queue removed by Housemaster. Looking at the reaction to his post, it seems like a lot of people were actually in support of Housemaster's decision to do this, but that didn't matter much anyway, because House removed the veteran queue entirely in December of that year. Why would he do this? Was he money hungry and wanted to get the extra queue money from the veterans? Or was he trying to prevent veterans from selling their accounts to give new people veteran access, despite having never played before? Whatever the reason, removing veteran queue sent waves throughout the server. It totally changed 2B2T's culture and was the nail in the coffin that made the majority of the OG 2B2T player base quit the server forever. They were not going to shell out $20 a month for the server that they used to play on for free. For example, WowGain and the YouTuber Dr. Zombie. Old players who used to join to see dozens of familiar faces now rarely recognized anyone. In their minds, 2B2T was going downhill, but honestly, so was Minecraft. When Fortnite got popular in 2018, Minecraft was at its lowest point since its initial release. Fortnite became the dominant game people were playing, and the camping rusher himself completely switched to it. At the same time, his own server, the Archon, was not doing well. He said it was actually in the red for several months. He had to let go of many of his employees, almost everyone, except for Curtis. He was even thinking of shutting it down completely before he realized he could sell it instead. Curiously though, one of the few people to continue to be a part of the Archon, even after it was sold, is Curtis. This is an important detail we'll have to keep in mind for later. Meanwhile, on 2B2T, there was some crazy drama. In late 2017 and early 2018, the player base discovered the chunk dupe, which I already mentioned took Housemaster 8 months to patch. This obliterated 2B2T's economy But I guess as long as priority queue sales don't change, it's nothing to worry about. When Minecraft was in its downturn, 2B2T kept marching on. But then, it absolutely skyrocketed in 2019. When Minecraft revived, tons of different YouTubers started making videos on 2B2T, but the biggest was FitMC himself. He was hopping on the documentary train, and those videos were getting millions and millions of views. A few years back, a player named Armorsmith was interviewed, and he revealed something that, if true, could change how people see 2B2T forever. I don't know how he knew this, but he claims there was a secret affiliate program that partnered the server with YouTubers. Certain YouTubers who signed formal agreements with 2B2T could profit directly off of the players they bring in. Armorsmith said 2B2T, at its most fundamental level, is a money-making machine, and most of the community members are just exploited for content to keep this machine going. He also claimed that at some point someone offered to buy the server at the bidding price of $3 million, which is honestly crazy. Armorsmith also said that 2B2T is not run by just Housemaster, but there's actually a team behind it. This would make sense given how much work it takes to maintain a server like this, but even if there's a team, it seems like they're kind of struggling. In January of 2019, Housemaster on the 2B2T announcements in the tab menu wrote, "Server is broke. Expect lag while it's being fixed." But then the biggest part, he said, 1.13 soon. 2B2T had been stuck on 1.12 for close to 2 years, so the new update was really exciting. He went on to say 1.13 would be expected in February, but when February came, House said 1.13 would come in March. In March, the message changed to 1.13 coming soon. It wasn't until April that 1.13 finally dropped on 2B2T, but only on the April Fool's temporary map, and that was incredibly laggy. With no word for several more months, the message finally changed to say that 2B2T would stay on 1.12 indefinitely. So what happened? Why string the community along for so long? I guess they just couldn't figure out how to make it work. The lag was unbeatable. In fact, 2B2T would remain stuck in 1.12 for another 4 years until the server was finally able to update. And when that did happen, there was a lot of drama. In the latter part of 2019, another one of Housemaster's bases was discovered. This occurred when the base hunter Courier 6 had the idea to go 125,000 blocks out from Nether spawn, or about 1 million blocks out in the overworld. He'd then do an entire circle around the center of the map, noting every single chunk trail that he came across. His rationale was that this was the prime territory for finding bases from before the Russia invasion. By this point, Elystras were finally fixed so he could move quickly enough to actually do the circle, so Courier 6 and his friend 4Pilot decided to try it. They circled Nether spawn and found a total of 150 chunk trails. Then, another base hunter, 123fly123, told Courier he was going to search for bases in the negative-positive quadrant when he found something. He found an abandoned railway from 2013, along with a sign saying that it had been spawned by Housemaster. When 123fly entered the overworld, he found another one of Housemaster's bases. He told Courier 6 what he found, but he refused to tell him where it was. But even just that was enough for Courier to go off of. He and 4Pilot spent the next 2 weeks going through every single chunk trail in that quadrant. Meanwhile, 123fly searched the base. He found a couple of books signed by Housemaster, and then went AFK. When he came back to his computer, he was at spawn without any stuff, but going through the logs didn't show any death messages. Finally, Courier 6 and 4Pilot found the base, and they too explored it, and then logged out. When 4Pilot logged back in, he too had been killed back to spawn, but there was no death message in anybody's logs. When they returned to the base, the chests were cleared and parts of it were completely gone. Courier told the YouTuber Barondome what happened, and Barondome arrived to search the base as well. They also found signed books confirming that it indeed was Housemaster's base, Based on the terrain, like the old village and old temple, the area had been generated in 2014 or earlier. At the base, there's also evidence that Housemaster had been duping dragon eggs. The craziest part is the proof of world edit. Half of a build was totally destroyed, with the terrain restored, as if House had run the /regenerate command. There was also a giant wall followed by nothing, and a Greek-style build with half of it missing. Fort Pilot emailed Housemaster about the base, but Housemaster denied having any involvement. Since it had been created in 2014 or earlier, it may have been built by the original Housemaster, not George Bush 420. Still, whoever it was definitely used admin commands to keep parts of it hidden. Regardless if it was the original Housemaster or George Bush 420 who ran those commands, they were about to face some major challenges from the 2b2t community. A series of events occurred that totally changed how Housemaster dealt with player punishments. Of course, 2b2t is anarchy, so you can't get punished, right? But actually, there are some exceptions to this. At the end of October, the players Carl 2b2t, Linky, and Red Sooner wrote the entire Bible on the server. They used written books and put them into shulkers. Those shulkers they put into a chest. When they opened and closed the chest, the server's TPS absolutely tanked. Housemaster had to fix this because all it took to totally destroy the server was to open and close a chest a few times. So he fixed it, but when he did, he accidentally re-enabled book banning. If you have too much data in your inventory, like from shulkers filled with books containing junk data, you'd get kicked from the server. Every time you attempt to rejoin, you'd get kicked again, effectively banning you. But this can be weaponized if you take those shulkers and toss them to someone else. Because of the Bible situation, book banning was back. A group formed to abuse this called the Book Club. The Book Club built traps to automatically ban players from the server, and over the next couple of days, hundreds of people were unable to play 2b2t at all. Housemaster had to step in, so he created a new punishment, the priority ban. If you were priority banned, you could still log into the server, but you were barred from ever buying priority queue again. That condemned you to the regular queue, which could take hours or even days to get through. The Book Club was angry about this, and they were even more angry when Housemaster finally patched book banning on October 30th. They responded by launching No Server November. The goal? Take down the server for an entire month. They built huge lag machines that made 2b2t practically unplayable. Because of their efforts, the number of players in regular queue dropped as low as 85, while priority queue became instant. The book club members had been banned from buying priority, but they even had a way around that. They discovered a queue skipping exploit. The method was to throw snowballs from the alpha version of Minecraft at another player, which for some reason would kick almost everyone from the server. Imagine you're number 300 in queue when hundreds of people are booted off 2b2t. In an instant, you jumped 150 spots ahead. The book club also built chunk bans. These are areas packed with so much data that anyone trying to load them would instantly get kicked from the server. This could be done by placing an exorbitant amount of player heads in one spot. They built one chunk ban at spawn, then moved to the Bedrock Comet at Ziggy Base. The book club made 2b2t unplayable. Not only were hundreds of people banned, those who weren't couldn't even enjoy the server because it was lagging so much. Housemaster retaliated. He priority banned as many book club members as he could find. Some people argued that this makes the server no longer be true anarchy, but honestly, I'm on House's side here. If your definition of anarchy means there is no anarchy server because no one can log in because of lag machines, then maybe there are some rules that are necessary just to keep the server functioning. Housemaster clearly thought the same and set up a system to automatically enforce this. If you were in the chunks that were causing the lag, you'd automatically get kicked from the server and have your priority queue revoked. But that's a dangerous system. The book club, now calling themselves the Brownmen, knew that they could abuse this. when they discovered that breaking and placing a block at the obsidian ceiling caused massive lag because the server had to recalculate the light levels for everything below, Redstoner built machines to automatically do this. Since Housemaster had the auto ban systems in place, anyone who got too close to those skylight lag machines would have their priority queue revoked and would get priority banned. But since so many innocent players got caught up in it, Housemaster restored their queue access. All this drama with priority queue made people think about whether or not it was even worth it to begin with. Salcy1 made an entire video weighing its pros and cons. At $20 a month, that's $240 for the year, just to play a single Minecraft server. Housemaster called it a donation to the server, but a donation for what? 2B2T had started out not for profit, and Housemaster had even put in thousands of dollars of his own money just to keep it running. Of course, more players means that the cost goes up as well, but how much? Some estimate that the server was making tens of thousands of dollars every single month. And where was that money going? The server was still running poorly, and there were other problems as well. For months, there was a glitch that meant every time the server restarted, players with priority queue could not reconnect after being kicked. And this only affected the people who paid for priority queue. And what's even worse, anyone who posted about that issue on the subreddit found their posts deleted by Housemaster. This censorship made people very suspicious. And at the same time, Housemaster himself deleted almost all of his past posts on Reddit, leaving them only viewable through programs like the Wayback Machine. Sal's video in August came after Sato86 made a post on the newly created 2B2T Uncensored subreddit. Because of the censorship, that subreddit quickly became a hub for open criticism. The top-rated post was Sato86's farewell. He lamented that 2B2T used to be this dark, niche corner of Minecraft no one knew about, and now there's millions of views about the server. Obviously it wouldn't stay the same, and I have no hopes that it will ever return to what it was. The server itself is not the same as it used to be. He also called 2B2T a cash cow. I'm confident to state that in February, the server was making between $16,000 to $20,000 in that month, and this was before the whole quarantine stuff that happened in the following months. Another point Sato made was about communication. In the previous year, House only addressed the community 8 times. The year before that, just 3 posts for all of 2018. By contrast, the owner of another anarchy server, Constantium, made 32 posts in the same period, and he's not making anywhere near 20k a month. Back in the day, on the old 2B2T website, you could actually see how many months were paid in advance by the community. We can't anymore, because each month, the server is being paid for almost 2 years. In a whole year of profit, it's probably enough to sustain the server for the next decade. And let's not forget that hosting costs have a tendency of getting cheaper over time. Things are definitely sus. People felt whoever was running 2B2T only cared about the money. And how do you even hope to influence someone who only cares about money? Well, hit them where it hurts. A year after the first no server November, the Brown Men embarked on another campaign. But this time, they were way more organized. They had a Discord server and planned to ban hundreds of players. They also sent Housemaster a list of demands to fix vanilla features and bring back people who had been priority banned. Using a bug in the server's anti-cheat, they found a new system to ban people. If you stand on a super high stack of boats, the server would think you're flying. So the Brown Men made boat stacks everywhere and forced players into them. Doing so, they banned more than 500 people in under 2 weeks. They also built a lag machine called the electromagnetic pulse, which froze the server completely. Anyone nearby was priority banned, and on top of complaining to Housemaster, players began charging back their payments. So many people charged back that Housemaster's PayPal got suspended. House relented and fixed some of the issues, but not all of them. By this point, tons of people had a lot of questions about Housemaster's role as the server admin. Throughout 2020 and into the first half of 2021, the Tyranny, now known as Nerds Inc., used an incredibly powerful coordinate exploit called Nocom to track the real-time location of over 300,000 players. It gave them the coordinates to thousands of bases and allowed them to steal tens of thousands of dollars worth of items. They kept the exploit under the radar as long as they could, but the fact that it wasn't patched for over a year is a very peculiar thing. Consider this. Nerds Inc. used a travel exploit to send AFK accounts more than 20 million blocks off the nether highways. These accounts were kept in a tiny 2x2 chunk box, constantly moving just enough to avoid being kicked for AFK. Apart from performing the Nocom exploit, the bots also had an alert system that would notify them if anyone ever entered their render distance. For months, the bots sat undisturbed. But then, something very strange happened. Nocom systems detected a player flying around those chunks. Chunks were loaded, but from the bot's perspective, no players were visible. It was as though there was a phantom entity flying around their area. The only plausible explanation is that this was a player in spectator mode. Housemaster. Housemaster likely saw the enormous amount of packets those accounts were sending to the server and teleported to the bots to see what they were up to. But even though he saw them and kicked them for AFK, Nocom went undiscovered. On one hand, Housemaster isn't a programmer, so he may not have had the skills to figure out what they were doing. House supposedly outsources plugin development to others, but on the other hand, the lead developer of Nocom, Leejerv, said this.
House probably has a deal with his hosting provider to get cheaper bandwidth at bulk, but if he didn't, they cost him tens of thousands of dollars just from spamming this packet so much, so often.
How could the exploit cost the server so much and not get fixed? Some believe that House was turning a blind eye to the nerds, but it seems much more likely that Nocom lasting so long was just due to negligence. Right around when Nocom was finally patched, Housemaster relaunched test.2b2t.org on Minecraft version 1.16. He also made his first Reddit post in over a year, announcing that they're preparing for a new update. But it wouldn't arrive for a long time. In November, a new shop website for 2b2t went live. Payments for priority queues switched from PayPal to Tebex, which is an important change given the issues with PayPal chargebacks in the past. But the biggest detail is the wording on the site. We are currently working on making it possible to update the server to 1.17. Thank you for your support. The word "we" implies that, by this point, a team rather than a single person is running 2b2t. At the same time, 2b2t's logo changed. Just a month earlier in October 2021, FitMC had released 2b2t merchandise on his channel. These designs included the infamous spawn region, his own base Fitlantis, and Space Valkyria 3, which was built by Jack the Ripper. But when the new shop launched, the terms of service for buying priority queue included new legal language forbidding the creation of merchandise based on builds from 2b2t. With this, the new payment website, and the message from the team, some players believe this strongly indicates that Housemaster sold the server. But it's going to take a while until we have any information on who that actually may be. In February 2022, the 2b2t Times, a map art newspaper published inside the game, was disbanded. Its leader, Forcecan, had written an article called 10 Rules. Contrary to popular belief, he stated, 2b2t does have rules. These rules were never publicly stated, but were instead cobbled together based on the experience of different players when they get punished for different things after acting out in particular ways. Ken listed them out. Advertising in chat, talking about Walden, using lag exploits, talking about doxxing, speaking unkindly about Housemaster in chat, duping items, spamming chat, using exploits to ban large amounts of players, refunding your priority queue, talking about the rules and punishments in chat. The 10th rule about not being allowed to talk about the rules and punishment in chat also applies to maps, because the day after publishing the article, Forcecan logged in to find all his accounts priority banned, and every map on the server wiped. These rules are strictly enforced. For example, DigMC posted these rules in chat and was muted as a result. Courier6 claimed that he himself was priority banned after joking about selling somebody's docs for $15. When he logged in with another account given by a friend, that account was also priority banned, which means that Housemaster priority banned his IP. According to the 2b2t wiki, more than 500 accounts have been priority banned. Rumor even has it that one player, HouseVault, has actually been hard banned from the server, supposedly for creating inappropriate map art that depicts blood or gore. In early 2022, SalC1 made a video called 2b2t is not full, where he exposed strange behavior in the server's queue system. He argued that for several months, the server actually hadn't been maxed out, since player counts were nowhere near the cap of 250, and priority queue players could join instantly. Dr. Crocus, another player, theorized that 2b2t reserves a certain number of player slots for regular players and saves the rest for priority members. He tested this by watching the queue after the server restarts. Dr. Crocus found that every restart reduced the standard queue by an average of just 75 players, meaning only 75 standard queue slots exist at a time. A more conspiratorial take is that he wanted to frustrate free players into buying queue, but that doesn't seem super likely. If new players couldn't get on at all, then they probably wouldn't be likely to pay for queue later on. Finally, in August of 2022, the years-long wait for a new 2b2t update seems like it would finally be coming to an end. On the 12th of that month, the message of the day and tab screen announced updating to 1.19 on Monday. The server was hyped. When Monday, August 14th rolled around, the server went offline. And then it stayed offline for much longer than people were expecting.
Thank you, Zoombra. Hey, 5 months. You'll love to see it. Now, let me tell you something, Stream Chat. I'm pissed off. You know why? I woke up at the ass crack of dawn today. 4 a.m. because 2b2t was finally updating, right? Got my coffee, ready to go. 4 a.m., nothing. 5 a.m., nothing. 6 a.m., nothing. 7 a.m., nothing. 8 a.m., nothing. 11 a.m., nothing. I wasted my whole morning waiting for this update. Housemaster. Son of a...
Then finally, the server came back online on Minecraft version 1.19, and with it, a new 2b2t website. Two Builders, Two Tools is a Minecraft server with a world that never resets, with PvP enabled in a free-for-all environment. The world is 12 years old with a size of 23,000 gigabytes and over 821,000 players visiting. There's many other changes happening to the server beyond the version change of 1.12 to 1.19. Please read them below. First, soft item economy reset. House completely removed certain items or had their stack size reduced to 1, with the intent of players working to obtain these again. Over the server's decade existence, various duplication exploits have caused significant damage to the server, particularly with the addition of shulkers. The thing is, how can there be damage if the server is anarchy? These duplicated items were responsible for a majority of the server's past problems, and to soften their future impact upon 1.19 and later, they've been reduced or removed. The full list of items will not be revealed here, though it is not long. A few of them are End Crystals removed, Bottle of Enchanting reduced, Enchanted Golden Apple reduced, Totems of Undying removed. But in reality, the full list of items changed or removed includes 30 things not listed on the website. House also trimmed old chunks that had barely been interacted with, fixed map IDs, world generation, animal spawning, monster spawning, and with the exception of the chunk trimming, these were widely accepted. But some of the other changes were outright weird, like making it no longer possible through cheats to see another player's item enchantments, or adding an anti-X-ray. So you're not allowed to cheat on an anarchy server with no rules? And then finally, there's rules, what? Do not attempt to undermine the server's effort to provide every player an equal and fair playing environment through means such as abusing any exploit, bug, or flawed game mechanic to cause server disruption or lag. Okay, honestly, for the server disruption and lag, that's fair. But abusing duplication glitches? that you're not allowed to duplicate on an anarchy server. And then also, SalC1 revealed a couple of changes that weren't mentioned. 2b2t's classic green text, a staple of the server, was removed. All illegally placed bedrock was reverted, which is also something 2b2t is famous for. When this happened, players were absolutely livid. Hundreds upon hundreds of people joined to form the 2b2t Union, denouncing the actions of the server owner and coming up with a scheme to ask for refunds of priority queue or chargebacks as a way to hit the server owner where it hurts. Many groups, including the Astral Brotherhood and the Last Templar, left 2b2t and moved to Constantium. Sal said after his video about the update was posted, he'd request a refund of his own priority queue and encourage everyone else to do the same. The video was watched by over 1 million people, and you can bet it had a huge impact. A couple of days later, Sal made a follow-up video where he exposed Housemaster's very strange response to him. Hello Sal, this is the same owner as always. It's very childish to direct your viewers and community to commit forced chargebacks. If you do not like a game or a game server, it's more than reasonable to quit with a loud opinion. But throwing a tantrum and telling your players to attempt a chargeback for your cause is not. But here's the thing, Sal did not tell people to ask for chargebacks. He told people to ask for refunds. Players did get refunds for priority queue, but at some point the server owners stopped accepting refund emails. The working theory for that is that Tebex, the payment system, stepped in and was like, yo, what is going on here? But with everything that happened, the server was no longer anarchy. Fit started creating a video criticizing the update.
I have about 20 DMs from 2b2t mutuals right now. House must have really done something to piss people off that I'm not yet aware of. Oh boy, when this stream is over, I'm gonna have a lot of homework to do.
But then on August 24th, House made a post on the 2b2t website titled, Update on the 1.19 situation, Apology, and Explanation. The creator of the post claimed to be Housemaster, founder and owner of 2b2t, spelled H-O-U-S-E. They apologized to the player base and gave their own rationale for the different changes. Nonetheless, Housemaster created a poll on the 2b2t subreddit to determine if the player base wanted a rollback. Options included rollback without item economy reset, rollback without item economy reset and without chunk trimming, or no rollback. Players overwhelmingly voted for the rollback without the item economy reset, without the chunk trimming. According to Fit,
Oh my god, I'm so happy. I'm so happy.
I thought you would be. I thought you would be.
Housemaster caught wind of the nuke that I was about to drop, and he's like, oh, we gotta revert these changes.
So 2b2t is an anarchy server. Why did House ever think he could totally change the entire essence of the server? Well, it's likely that this is not the same Housemaster as before, and the clues lie within the website itself. The website that released with the 1.19 update was not the first version people saw. Over a year earlier, the player Inf Israel discovered a website which looked like it was commissioned by Housemaster himself, and that's now been verified. Nowhere on the website did it say who created it, but the source code revealed the signature of a web designer named Nikolov DZN. Nico has made websites for many other Minecraft servers, including the Archon. When Rusher sold the Archon, he sold it to a company called Voldex Games, who also worked with Nico on other sites. This website circumstantially links 2b2t and the Archon once more, under the umbrella of Voldex Games. Is it possible that Voldex bought 2b2t when they purchased the Archon? Well, the most damning piece of evidence, however, comes from Curtis, the developer of the 2b2t queue himself. As late as November 2022, Curtis was still involved in the server's money system. In a Discord message, he asked, anyone have these little promotions on Tebex checkout? Tebex, of course, being the money system that 2b2t began to use. The screenshot he posted showed those promotions, but right above that was a note. If you have any questions, please contact 2b2t testing and provide the reference number. That confirmed Curtis was still working on and making money from the 2b2t queue and payments. But what's even crazier is someone got into that Tebex Discord with a special Discord client that reveals who is able to access locked channels. Who do you guess has access to the 2B2T channel? Two people, Curtis and the Camping Rusher. So who is Housemaster? Well, here is a series of events potentially laying out the full timeline of ownership and control. I'll lay this out first with the established facts, and then with conjecture afterwards. So 2010, 2B2T is created by Housemaster and George Bush 420. Both were server operators, with Ben Jojo also helping until 2012. In 2014, Housemaster handed ownership to an anonymous friend, George Bush 420, who took on the title of Housemaster. 2016, when the Russia invasion occurred, Russia tried to buy the server. It doesn't seem like he succeeded, but we know he, Curtis, and George Bush entered into a partnership. 2017-2019, when the Camping Rusher quit Minecraft, went to Fortnite, and sold the Archon, it's possible that that deal involved 2B2T. Maybe the new owners didn't fully control 2B2T, but Rusher and Curtis's equity in the server transferred. Since Curtis maintained his position in the Archon, he also maintained it at 2B2T. Or the Camping Rusher sold the Archon, but he and Curtis kept 2B2T going. Either way, in 2021, the official 2B2T payments moved from PayPal to Tebex, and the owner began using first-person plural pronouns like we and our. Some believe this is when Housemaster, or George Bush 420, sold his stake in the server to the team who owns the Archon. But why would he give up his money printing machine at the height of its popularity? One reason may be that he was tired of dealing with all the player chaos. Organized groups trying to take down the server, chargebacks, and harassment. It's confirmed that after this, a team worked on the server, and Curtis was still involved with the Q payments. That team was responsible for the 1.19 update as well. Another clue that suggests Housemaster stepped away from the server is how the update was handled. Because Curtis was never truly a 2B2T player, only the Q developer, it's possible he didn't understand Anarchy's essence. That's why the 1.19 reset was such a massive blunder. But whoever owns 2B2T, Housemaster, Rusher, Curtis, Voldex Games, why would they stay so secretive? There's two big reasons. The first is self-preservation. They know full well what 2B2T players have done to people whose personal info is exposed. And that's just to normal players. Running the server paints a much bigger target on your back. And there are definitely people who've attempted to dox 2B2T's owner, find out who he is and where he is. The second reason to keep things secret is this. Who wants to be publicly known as the owner of 2B2T? There would be a lot of questions about the people behind the server that contain so much toxicity, doxing, harassment, and illegal activity. Do you really want to be known as the guy who owns the world's worst Minecraft server? You'd be held responsible for everything players do on there. Because of that, it's likely we'll never know for certain who the real Housemaster is. But this is everything I know. You now have enough information to make your own conclusions. By the way, the algorithm thinks you'll enjoy this video. Let's see if it's right.